Hi, I'm Jordan Cooper, and I am talking to you today to request your support for Public Interest Podcast. I want to tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I think you ought to support my endeavor. So, I have been volunteering nearly every month of my life, for the majority of my life, since around the time when I was 14 years old, 1999. Been doing public service for years. For me, it's very important. Much has been given to me, and I believe, therefore, I have a great responsibility to give back. In terms of what I'm hoping to do, well, I ran for office in 2014 to represent the Bethesda, Maryland area in the Maryland House of Delegates, and I lost. I was a little bit frustrated that one of the most educated cities in the United States and among the wealthiest cities in the United States just didn't have very much voter turnout. In fact, in my district, District 16, 5 out of 6 registered Democrats did not choose to vote in the Democratic primary. So I was a little bit frustrated with with nobody voting. Despite having canvassed, I knocked 12,000 doors over 13 months. I sent out 120,000 pieces of literature, was able to raise $60,000. 1 in 6 voters gave me cash on the spot at their door within a few minutes of meeting me, but was inadequate to win. So I decided to create an app and a website called Rotunda to try to increase informed voter turnout and civic engagement. And then I actually ended up pivoting from that after 2 years to try to do a project that I could fully invest myself in without needing to try to recruit web developers. So I'm trying to do this on my own. What I'm trying to do with Public Interest Podcast is a number of things. First of all, when I was running for office, a lot of people would ask me, well, why are you running for office? A lot of politicians are not so great. Maybe they're sleazy. Maybe they lie. Not the best kind of people. You're not like that, so why do you want to do that? And in fact, I think that being a public servant as a politician is actually one of the most noble and honorable callings one could have. And I know hundreds of politicians, and none of them really fit that negative description. So I thought, well, how could I actually get politicians or change the impression people have about politicians? Of course, on the national stage, we've had quite a significant the result of the election was the federal election for president was indicative of the antipathy that the American people feel for politicians. So I thought, well, there's a few things. One, when people know, so that's why did people have this negative perception of politicians? Well, when you read about politicians in the news, in the press, it's generally only negative stories about politicians, people who screwed up. There's a scandal, there's some problem. But the majority of politicians, I think about 500,000 Americans who are currently alive today have at some point run for or held elected office at some point in their lives. So you have state legislators, you have city council members, mayors, congressmen, a whole variety of elected officials in the United States. And if Delegate XYZ, granted most people don't even know what a delegate is, has been answering constituent service calls at a 95% successful completion rate for the last 3 months, that's actually not too newsworthy for most publications. And of course, that's in light of the rise of the information age, the internet, and the concurrent decline of local news coverage of local politics. So especially when there's more competition on people's attention, you're going to get less coverage on something that seems to be on its face mundane. I think a lot of the stories associated with public service and politicians is very, very positive. But again, if a state senator or a council member is very responsible and does their job well, that's not considered to be newsworthy. So I wanted to give them an opportunity on Public Interest Podcast to really articulate their own story in their own words. And I was hoping that by creating a kind of positive news feature-like source, we can change the national narrative about public service through elected office. Of course, I also wanted to address growing negativity, antipathy that I feel has become a part of this American nation that increasingly seems to be polarized in almost two nations. So on that front, I have tried to invite Republicans, Democrats, non-political people to speak about why they're trying to advance the public interest. And I've come to see that many people across society, regardless of their opinions, are really seeking to advance the public interest, and they only disagree about what constitutes the public interest and how to get there. So, so that's on public interest. So right, so the different politicians. All right, so also there's antipathy. So I think that if they're homophobic individuals, oftentimes having the opportunity to listen to a gay person speak about their perspective and really reveal their humanity. The tagline of Public Interest Podcast is revealing our humanity. I think that may humanize the subject of dislike, in this case, a homosexual person. And that may lead to a more positive, productive, respectful tone, more civilized tone of the conversation around the nation. Similarly, if you don't like Jews, and you can listen to one. If you don't like Catholics, if you're maybe someone who's racist that doesn't like black people, then I'm hoping that by interviewing all these a wide diversity array, if there's a liberal individuals who can't understand why Tea Party Republicans may have an interest in supporting certain candidates for the Congress, or can't imagine why Middle America elected Donald Trump president. Conversely, Tea Party people or establishment Republicans can't understand why anyone would want to do the Occupy Wall Street movement. Instead of making them into an other and demonizing somebody who they don't understand, who's different, I'm hoping through Public Interest Podcast to really elicit the good intentions that most people have as they seek to advance the public interest as they see fit. And so hopefully try to create more mutual understanding and trust and respect, even if they're not convincing someone who differs with them of the merits of their own perspective. And so with Public Interest Podcasts, I'm trying to capture these stories. I'm trying to engage people. I want people to see that, only half the interviews are with politicians. You could be a doctor, an attorney, an accountant. I want someone to say, I really thought I'd advance the public interest and do public service, but I don't really feel like running for governor. That's not me. Well, great. I hope through Public Interest Podcast you can see many different people. You can be the executive director of an organization that helps the homeless, somebody who does housing, who does food assistance, who runs healthcare quality. There's a police officer. There's so many ways in society that you can really help improve the state of society, and I'm hoping to capture all that through Public Interest Podcasts. To date, I've acquired 14,000 listens, about 13,000, maybe 12,500 visits to the website, publicinterestpodcast.com, and another 1,500 to 2,000 or so listens on the app. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Blueberry, Player FM, archives.org. So a lot of different platforms, and now we're doing virtual reality, as you can see. So I'm trying to make these stories known to a wider variety of people. So why am I asking for your support? Well, if you think this is an admirable task, and it does advance the public interest, which I hope it's doing, and if you think that by watching some previous episodes and listening to them on your computer or on your mobile phone, if you think that this is something that's worth perpetuating, I'd ask for your support. And what will I use it for? Essentially income, right? So that I can do this full time. I'm now releasing 5 episodes a day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every single week. Have a backlog into the summer, often do 3 or 4 interviews in a single day. And I spend a lot of my time doing this. So far, I've been non-remunerated for my task with Public Interest Podcasts. I'm passionate about getting people's stories out there and making these stories available to a wide variety of people and hopefully inspire them to make the world a better place. So I'm asking for your funds, which I know you've worked hard to do, as a way of supporting me in this endeavor, so I don't have to distract myself with other activities as I seek revenue to afford this condo and breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And instead of needing to seek a salary, previous having worked for Medicaid and Johns Hopkins Hospital and the Mid-Atlantic Permanente Medical Group with Kaiser Permanente, and now I'm going to be returning to the Close-Up Foundation as a program instructor, teaching high school civics. So those are all worthwhile and worthy endeavors, but I'm asking for your support for Public Interest Podcast so that I may be able to do this full time. Please feel free to share this video with your friends, colleagues, anyone you think may be interested. Even a $5 contribution would be welcome. And really just seeking a way to make this full-time and viable so that we can continue to advance the public interest. Should you have any recommendations for people I should interview, you can call 240-630-0380, and that's my Google Voice account, so I'll get that voicemail and be able to respond to you. Again, you can email me at info@publicinterestpodcast.com. My name is Jordan Cooper. I'm the host of Public Interest Podcast. I appreciate your time, appreciate your consideration of supporting this endeavor, and thank you so much, and please enjoy listening to future episodes.